Uh-huh. I just feel like I've been around the block, ripping up fantasy stock, working around the clock. Look at the view from the top. Researching rookies a lot? No, I just be listening to pods. Yeah, one in particular, I'm just a messenger. Let me just pass on the rock. Browning, brunning, pruning, pronouncing ain't what he's doing. What he's doing is not losing, but infusing you with new things. And there's Dennis the Bennett, yeah. The man is a menace, yeah. Building a dynasty, some of the finest things. Promise you, you won't regret it. Sly as a fox, cultured in pop. Give him his props. Here is a thought, here is a box, and you cannot compare them at all. So don't even try. Careful with the news, but when you use a take, I take up Tony Fire. I mean Dyer, because anyone else is a huge mistake. Whoa, fantasy round table, fantasy round table, yeah. Fantasy round table. Come take a look at the crown, baby. Hey, fantasy round table, fantasy round table, woo. Fantasy round table. Come take a look at the crown, baby. Go.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Fantasy Football Roundtable podcast. It is Monday and Dennis and I are here talking NFC running back groups. But before all that, Dennis, big week shaping up for you. You got the graduation just a few days away. How are you preparing?
I'm just being quiet and staying out of the way. No, it's actually, so Caleb didn't want a big party, which is great. His graduation ceremony isn't until 7:00 at night. So initially, when we first knew the date, I took the whole day off. Well, I went in today. I'm going to work until 2:00, and we're going to head over to the arena about 3:30 or so. My wife knows the guy who runs the arena, and so we got a room. Caleb's best friend and us. We have a couple suites, so we're not out in the stands at the Value City Arena. We got another room where we're setting up catering, so we're going to have a meal before all of the pomp and circumstance. And he's like, look, I want this guitar, and I would rather you guys spend the money on this guitar I want. So all of our family, my mom is here and her dad is here, but all the rest of our family is all scattered all over the place. So, and he doesn't, his circle of friends is very small and intimate. And he's like, no, I don't want to have a big party. And we're like, all right, works for us. He goes,
hey, at least you get a fun spot where you can have
almost $3,000.
At least you have a fun spot where you can have dinner and kind of relax into the occasion. But I hope it's a blast for you. I hope you have good weather too.
It's indoors, so
well, then it doesn't matter. I always know it's high school graduation season because the large arena in town is not too far from our house, and all of a sudden it'll be like the middle of the week. I'll be like, why is there so much traffic over here? Right. The blessing. Well, there wasn't a ton in the way of news. OTAs are supposed to be starting today, so we'll see if that yields any fruit. At least it should yield some coach speak and rumors by Friday. But the couple big things I've seen that came out, Jadeveon Clowney interested in returning to the Texans, the team that originally took him number 1 overall. They have a new defensive-minded head coach. Does this potential reunion move the needle for you, Dennis?
So Jadeveon Clowney, he's an above average defensive lineman, but he's a average at best quarterback sacker. So, he's good enough that he can help free up a guy like Myles Garrett, who's really good at getting to the quarterback, whether Clowney's on the other end or not. Clowney's a good offensive lineman. He's getting older. He's at the stage now where he's going to do one of two things. He's going wherever he's going to get the most money, or he's going wherever he's getting a ring. And I think he's looking around right now and he looks at where he's at, and I think he feels like, hey, I can go get another big payday and then go get a ring. And who knows, maybe Houston turns around. They've got this new head coach. They've got a franchise quarterback. being opposite of Will Anderson can't hurt. So what's he, he's going to provide veteran leadership. He's a solid player. I think he's probably best maximized as a rotational player in Houston this year. Unfortunately, he may end up having to play more snaps than you'd ideally like him to, which is going to wear him down because he is older. But I mean, he's a good player. I don't hate it. I think D'Amico Ryans is going to try to get as much as he can out of the defense.
It's just, you mentioned like a big payday or a ring, which would make sense. And I don't really foresee either of those with Houston. I would think the only reason maybe to go back to Houston is for a little bit of the nostalgia of it.
He could do a prove it deal in Houston, go and play really well and set himself up to sign with a contender next year. Kansas City, for instance, the way they're building their team, they're going to be cycling through the Frank Clarks and the Jadeveon Clowney types. That's what they're going to be looking for to fill some of their key spots.
A prove-it deal would probably make more sense to me because a couple of his last couple of stops haven't exactly been robust in the way they've ended. The other piece of news, the Ravens are signing back Josh Johnson into their quarterback room. Dennis, I thought this was an interesting move. They had put a tender on Tyler Huntley. I don't know if he has signed it yet. Josh Johnson does not seem to be exactly the same type of quarterback as Huntley and Lamar Jackson. What do you make of this signing?
Well, he's not immobile. He's just not, he's not that next level athlete like Lamar. He's not. I think Huntley is probably maybe equal distance between Lamar and Josh Johnson athletically. And Johnson, honestly, I think what keeps him from being better athletically at this point is he's 35 years old now. He's getting up there. He's the ideal third quarterback, and they just passed that rule today that you can have a third quarterback on the sideline that doesn't count towards your roster in case of a Brock Purdy crisis. And Josh Johnson is the perfect guy for that. He's gonna, he'll be able to come in. He's had more 4-day preparation weeks with brand new teams and played games over his 15-year career than I think anybody else in the league. He's very resilient, and he is a professional quarterback. I think it makes a lot of sense. I still think Huntley will be the number 2 guy. They'll have a developmental guy. Maybe it's going to be Anthony Brown that they've had on the roster. Maybe it'll be somebody different. But Huntley is the perfect, third quarterback to have, break glass in case of emergency.
Yeah, and I mean, the Ravens are obviously a team that had to go that route because when Lamar was out, Huntley got hurt, and Anthony Brown ended up having to start those games down the stretch. Didn't really work out as well for the Ravens. They have not had a lot of success with quarterbacks not named Lamar Jackson the last 2 years, especially down the stretch. Be curious to see what happens this year. We are going to transition. We're continuing our unit grades, and we're moving on to running backs. And today we are looking at NFC running backs. This is not just about the starter, which is really great at the running back position, because some of these teams, it's impossible to forecast who's going to be on the field for the first snap. This is looking at the whole depth of the room. We go 16-1. Dennis, I will let you kick it off. Why don't you give me your first 4, 16-13.
All right, so at 16, I have the Arizona Cardinals. I love James Conner as a contender by this year. I think he's somebody you can get dirt cheap, but they've got nothing behind him that's proven anything. Keontae Ingram, Corey Clement Corey Clement, I think, is becoming the Josh Johnson of running backs. Tyson Williams. who it seemed when he was in Baltimore, he had one good week, got thrust in there and had a good week. He's since bounced around. He was in Indianapolis. He's athletically, he's got a good profile, but there's something that's not quite clicking for him. I don't know if it's a Christian Michael syndrome and he just can't see the play develop when he's running. There's something that's not clicking with Tyson Williams. But James Conner, I think he's going to have a good year. With him, it's always going to come down to health. So I've got Arizona at 16. I've got the Rams at 15. I think they're just biding their time with Cam Akers. They're going to probably start him and play him an awful lot. Coming into the league, vision was always his bugaboo. He didn't see the field. He didn't see the cuts very well. Then he had the Achilles injury. We're going to be, a year and a half now, 2 years removed from that. He's looked a little bit better, but I don't know that the explosion is ever going to get back. And that was sort of, that's how he covered up his lack of vision, was by being explosive. Kyron Williams is the 2 there. They drafted Zach Evans. Ronnie Rivers is the 4, kind of a special teams guy thrust into playing last year. I don't know what to make of Williams. Kyron Williams was a really, really poor athletic profile from the combine. Zach Evans, he's got a good combine profile. He kind of just never was able to grab a job in college and take control of it. And a lot of college teams use multiple backs, but you can see when somebody established, like at Georgia, they use multiple backs. But Sony Michel or Nick Chubb or DeAndre Swift, these guys establish themselves as the guy. And even though they're splitting time, Zach Evans never did that. And he transferred from one school to another and still didn't do it. So I'm not sold on Evans. He feels like a guy that might get opportunity because of where he's at, but I don't know what he's going to do with it. So I've got the Rams at 15, got the Buccaneers at 14. I want to be higher on Rachaad White. He's looking at a great opportunity. The downside is a weak offensive line and the quarterback situation there, aging wide receivers. And while it's easy to fall in love with the raw numbers that White put up and some of his explosiveness, he wasn't terribly efficient in either the passing game or the running game last year. Maybe some of that's the offensive line on the running side. They signed Chase Edmonds as a free agent. They did sign Sean Tucker. Our lads list Sean Tucker as 5th string, so I didn't really incorporate him in here. But there's a chance Sean Tucker climbs way up this depth chart and changes it. Chase Edmonds is who Chase Edmonds is. Keyshawn Vaughn at the RB3, we have not seen him do anything. Like they're just waiting for his contract to expire. And then the Panthers, I have the Panthers at
13.
13. Sorry, I lost my count here. And I like Miles Sanders is kind of like James Conner this year. I really like him a lot. But behind him, they don't have much. Chuba Hubbard, Raheem Blackshear, Spencer Brown, not a lot of guys that are going to instill fear. Now, Hubbard, there's still an opportunity he could step up. He's a young guy. He's got really good speed. Maybe he catches up with the NFL this year and he shows more. I think Miles Sanders is going to be really good. Of these bottom 4, I actually have Sanders ranked as my 9th running back in the NFC. I like him. I think he's in a great spot right now. They signed him to the best free agent contract. He was the 2nd contract running back in this class that got a really nice contract. So I like him a lot. So that's my 13.
Yeah, we have the same 16 for largely the same reason. I also went with the Arizona Cardinals. Connor has run for at least 750 yards each of his 2 seasons there, but he's also missed games each of those seasons. And like you mentioned, complete unknown behind him. I like him decently as somebody that you're grabbing as an RB2 flex option, but who knows what would happen behind him. Ingram, we haven't seen much of anything. Clement's bounced around the league, hasn't really done much of anything. They don't have anyone. And, you mentioned Tyson Williams. He had one great game, and then it sure seemed like the Ravens went and found every 30-year-old running back with a pulse to throw in instead of him. We never saw him back.
Every single one.
Yeah, and then he got cut free, so I don't really know what to make of that. So they just were easily, for me, they have an okay starter, but they have no depth, so it was easy for me to just drop them right to the bottom. Next for me is Tampa Bay. Rachaad White had moments last year, but he only ran for 481 yards. Did fairly well as a receiver, but then the signing of Chase Edmonds gives me pause. If they would have gone and gotten a pounding running back, I feel like I'd know what Rachaad White is, but you go and give a free agent contract to Chase Edmonds. Are they both splitting because they can do almost the same things? And then you're right, Keyshawn Vaughn is probably the most high-profile third-round running back pick of the last few years that has literally never had any role. He got like one opportunity. I think it was during his rookie season, and he fumbled a couple of times, and Arians was done with him. We never saw him come back last year. It's hard to bank on him. I liked the Sean Tucker signing. That's a probably low risk, high reward because he was an undrafted free agent. He still has a medical issue. We don't know what's going on there, but to me, it was just a murky backfield, poor offensive line from what we've seen, kind of a tepid quarterback room, if you remember our quarterback rankings. So I have them down there. I have the Rams next. So we have the same bottom three teams. I don't know that I think the Rams are that much better, but I felt more confident, I guess, in Cam Akers as a starter than in Rachaad White. Although I'm not sure the Rams are confident in Cam Akers as a starter. He started the season as the starter last year, then was a healthy scratch that was going to be immediately traded and then got welcomed back. And no, he's our guy. He's our starter. How long does that last? I don't know. Matt and I were both interested in Kyron Williams last year. We didn't get to see him do much of anything, but notably Rams backfield candidates, it takes kind of like a year to learn the complex system or to gain Sean McVay's trust. Well, we see more. That could be interesting. I thought the Zach Evans draft pick was interesting, but you're talking about guys that are fifth and a sixth round pick from the last 2 years. Hard to have a lot of confidence. So that's why I have them in that spot. And then for me at 13, I have the Chicago Bears. I liked what we saw from Khalil Herbert in flashes, but he is, again, a sixth-round pick who hasn't really been asked to carry a full load. They have Deonta Foreman coming over. Foreman has had a good last couple of years, first with Tennessee and then a little over 900 yards, kind of getting the primary rushing role after McCaffrey was traded in Carolina, but he's on his third team in 3 years, kind of a journeyman. I didn't mind the Roschon Johnson pick, but we've never seen him carry a full load. He was at Texas at the same time as a fellow named Bijan Robinson, probably played a little bit of a role in there. So I like that they have three options that interest me, and then they have kind of a depth piece in Travis Homer, but I don't have a great deal of confidence in them as of yet. So that's why as a group, I kind of have them there. There's a lot of potential, but as you know, for me, I think I mentioned this when we were looking at quarterbacks. I like potential, but I'm not banking on potential when it comes here. I'll do my next four here. At 12 for me, I have the Washington Commanders. I think they have a pretty solid duo in Brian Robinson Jr. and Antonio Gibson. They found something down the stretch last year. Those two seem to work pretty well off of each other. I'd like to see Robinson hopefully have a more healthy offseason, be able to start the season strong. I thought it wasn't too bad of a duo, not incredibly impressive. Nothing about Washington's offense is incredibly impressive to me, so that's where I have them. Chris Rodriguez was a draft pick they have there. They have kind of journeyman and Jonathan Williams and Jared Patterson back there, but the top two I like decently enough to slot them here. I have the Carolina Panthers at 11. I guess I like them a little bit more than you, mostly because of Miles Sanders. Sanders is coming off a career year. He ran for 1,269 yards and had 11 touchdowns last year. Last year was also the first time in his 4-year career that he was available in all 17 games. That's a big question, but I liked his upside a lot. And Chuba Hubbard actually has run for 1,078 yards over his first 2 seasons. He's been a pretty decent role player, but you are right. Behind those two, they don't really have anything that would give me a great deal of confidence. But I really like the upside of Sanders. That's one of my more favorite signings this offseason of free agents. I thought it was a great fit for a great emerging offense. At 10, I have the Dallas Cowboys. I love Tony Pollard. Pollard's coming off an incredible year where he ran for more than 1,000 yards, put in 9 touchdowns, caught 39 passes, got 3 receptions. He's also coming off a broken leg. And behind him, they don't have Zeke anymore. There are 2 teams that the first of which is Tampa Bay and the second of which is Dallas that have both been strongly rumored to sign Zeke. If he joined either of those groups, that would really bump those units up again for me. But without them, we're just going by the players we have. Behind him, Malik Davis, Ronald Jones, who had a few moments, went a couple of good seasons with Tampa Bay, but was relatively unused his last year in Tampa Bay and was pretty much a ghost with Kansas City last year. That gives me pause. That was probably their most notable signing. I don't know how much I trust Malik Davis as the number 2. They drafted Deuce Vaughn, but I think, Dennis, you and I have talked about a few times, he might be more of a special teams ace than somebody you're depending on in the backfield. So I like Pollard, and his upside was enough for me to slot them at 10, but I really didn't feel like going much higher because I don't trust what's behind him. And then I have the Giants at 9. I love Saquon Barkley. He's easily the best of the starting running backs in the group that I have listed off so far. But behind him, you have kind of a journeyman in Matt Breida, and you have a rookie in Eric Gray. Could one of those guys be something great? Maybe, but we don't totally know. And then, they have Gary Brightwell and Jashawn Corbin rounding out the depth chart. I'm not making a lot of that. I liked the Gray draft pick. He's been a sneaky guy that I've been picking up late in rookie drafts because there's always injury potential with Saquon Barkley. He's run for over 1,000 yards in 3 of his 5 seasons where he managed to play at least 12 games, but he has 2 seasons where he didn't make it. He looked really great. He had a career year rushing last year, his highest rushing total last year. I think he fits their offense great. There's a reason they gave him the franchise tag, but there's a little bit of risk there. And I don't think there's anyone super dynamic behind him. So that is my next 4. Dennis, how about you?
So I checked in with the Giants at number 12. I agree with you. It's Saquon Barkley, and then who knows what else. It's really we'll see. Malik Davis did look pretty good in his limited time that he had last year. Deuce Vaughn or Malik Davis. I'm already on to the next one. All right, Matt Breida looked okay backing up Saquon Barkley. But you're not expecting Breida or Eric Gray or Gary Brightwell. It almost feels like we're looking at a potential for an 75 or 80% snap share for Saquon Barkley. The question becomes, will he hold up, or are they going to throw the ball a lot more? They who's the coach again? Dayball threw the coach a ton in Buffalo with Josh Allen. And after the magic he seemed to work with Daniel Jones last year, I know they don't have squat for wide receivers, but they did bring in Darren Waller, and Isaiah Hodgins stepped up. They drafted Jalen Hyatt, Darius Slayton, Paris Campbell, Sterling Shepard, Wan'Dale Robinson. 3 people are going to start at wide receiver, or 2 people anyways. Maybe they run some 12 personnel because Daniel Bellinger looked good in his time as the starter last year, stepped right in as a rookie. So we could see Waller working out of the slot as a big slot, which would be weird considering that 7 of the 10
they only have slots
on the Giants are slot receivers. But Paris Campbell's 6 foot and over 200 pounds. Darius Slayton's a bigger guy. Jalen Hyatt, while being skinny, is over 6 foot. Isaiah Hodgins is 6'3". They do have a little bit of stuff there. So the Giants may throw it more to help conserve Barkley because they don't have a ton. Or maybe Eric Gray steps up and becomes that second running back behind them. I have the Cowboys next. I know it doesn't look like that on the sheet you're looking at, but as I looked at my scores, I realized I had them flipped. And I agree with you there, Tony. It's very much the same thing as the Giants. The one I feel like Pollard is younger. Wouldn't surprise me to look it up and see that they're the same age or something. But Pollard has certainly had fewer injuries and not carried the ball quite as much as Saquon Barkley. Malik Davis, Deuce Vaughn, Ronald Jones again. It's like this Josh Johnson signing. I think Ronald Jones is in that phase of his career where he's going to be that RB 4 or 5 on a team until they determine he's not good enough at special teams. Like, he's a guy with speed. He could return kicks. Whether he will or not, I don't know. He's got good size. He's 6 foot and 205, 210, 215, somewhere in that range. It just never panned out. So I like Tony Pollard a lot. I expect Tony Pollard to get a lot of usage. And as somebody who just recently traded for him, I cross my fingers every day that they don't re-sign Zeke.
They are both 26.
Right. All right. Figures. Pollard just seems so much younger.
I think he was a draft class behind because I think he's only done 4 years and Saquon's done 5. But
yeah. At 10, I've got the Commanders. The Commanders. So whereas the Cowboys and the Giants, they have like a stud running back and then a bunch of nobodies. The Commanders, they have like a bunch of B minus guys. They've got Brian Robinson, decent runner, just not overly athletic. He can catch the ball, but he's not going to outrun people. He's big. He's got some power, just not super athletic. Antonio Gibson, on the other hand, super athletic. For whatever reason, Ron Rivera hates him and doesn't want to give him the ball. But good size. He's 6'3", 6'1", 220. He's a bigger guy. Played wide receiver. He should dominate the passing game, but they just have never seemed to use him like that. They drafted Chris Rodriguez, who, is a poor man's Brian Robinson, I guess. So he's a little less athletic, a little slower, a little less power. The Commanders said they had a 3rd-round grade on Rodriguez, but by and large, most draft nicks that I read had Rodriguez as a 7th rounder or UDFA. They just, all right, get your guy, I guess. At 9, I've got the Seahawks, and this is one where we differ quite a lot. I like Kenneth Walker a lot. I think he's a very athletic running back. But by drafting Zach Charbonnet where they did, it kind of tells you really what they think, that they don't want to give him that many touches. There's some role that they don't want to have to use Kenneth Walker in. Is it the passing game? Maybe. He seemed to catch the ball okay last year. But again, he's another guy, 6'5", 209, or excuse me, 5'9", 209. 6'5" would be big for a running back. He's got good enough size, but he's not like a big, powerful back. He's got good speed, but not great speed. Zach Charbonnet is a big guy with good power and catches the ball well, but he's a rookie. Is Pete going to trust him to take touches away from a guy he drafted in the 2nd round last year? It feels like it's honestly, it feels like a hot mess in the Seattle backfield is coming. We're not going to know from week to week which running back we should be starting. It looks like it's going to be a mess. DJ Dallas is serviceable as an RB3 for a team. I don't think he has any fantasy relevance unless for some reason, Charbonnet gets hurt and Dallas is able to usurp the passing down role and get, consistent targets. They drafted Kenny McIntosh. To me, we had a guy, Dynasty Nerds had a guy down at the Senior Bowl. And let's just say McIntosh didn't come off great in interviews. I think he's got some talent. He can catch the ball. He's got good size. But there was he came off a little bit entitled, and maybe it was because he felt like our guy was a nobody. I don't know, but what do they say? All those great business books say you can tell the measure of a man by how they treat the janitor or something like that. So he didn't kind of come off great there. So that's my 12 through 9.
Why don't you go ahead and do your 8 to 5?
All right, at 8, I have the New Orleans Saints, and this was a tough one. I've got Kamara dropping in my rankings because he's getting older. He's going into his 7th season now? 6th season, 7th season? Yeah. He's not catching the ball like he did under Sean Payton. Honestly, I don't think it's not because he can't catch the ball. I just think it's the new offensive coordinator, Carmichael, doesn't throw him 100 targets a season. Jamal Williams scares me a little bit as the number 2 back there. I like what he did in Detroit last year. He had a very clear and defined role. And we've seen under Peyton, the Saints kind of structure their running backs very much that same way with Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara, and both of them be relevant. Anecdotally, Jamal Williams is kind of he's kind of like Matt Ryan in that he hits every other year. Like he'll have a great year and then a mediocre year and a great year and a mediocre year. And he scored 17 touchdowns and rushed for 1,000 yards last year. So it almost sounds like he's due for a mediocre year. I don't know how this is going to work with Derek Carr there. What are they going to do? It's a new offense, lots of new parts on that offense. So I'm a little bit nervous there. Kendre Miller already talking like he's ready to step into the Kamara role during Kamara's suspension. I appreciate it, but let's wait till we find out exactly what we got going on there. The Bears, I have the Bears at 7, so I'm a little bit higher, but it comes down to, do we calculate Justin Fields is rushing when we're talking about the running backs? Like we do tight ends in the receiving? Maybe not. I didn't really do it here. I like the pairing of Foreman and Herbert. Herbert's explosive, and Foreman runs with some power. And interestingly enough, then they drafted Roschon Johnson, who's probably the best third down back of the 3 of them. And we may not see Deontay Foreman make it out of training camp. It may end up being the Khalil Herbert, Roschon Johnson show, which, I don't know if it's good or bad. It just is. But I like the sum of the parts there in Dallas. And Travis Homer, he's your quintessential RB4 special teamer guy. I got the Packers at 6. I still love Aaron Jones. I'm not as high on A.J. Dillon as I used to be. I think Dillon's going to still play a role. Again, this is another team. All their top receivers are first and second year guys. They've got a first year starter at quarterback, though I think he's 37 years old or something. He's been riding the pine behind Bart Starr. He's been there for a while. So I like the Packers. I just think Aaron Jones does it all. He's a great pass blocker, an exceptional receiver. He's dynamic with the ball in his hand. If the offensive line can come together, I think that the Packers starting out may lean on the running game a little bit more, and that's going to bode really well for Aaron Jones. And then I've got the Vikings at number 5. Now, I'm going to throw a caveat on here, and that caveat being that I'm still counting Dalvin Cook. He's still on the team. While all the tea leaves, all the arrows, all the signs seem to point to us in 12 days, Dalvin Cook getting cut. Maybe he gets cut, maybe he doesn't, but right now he's on the team. Despite the fact he misses 2 or 3 games a year, seemingly to injury, he's still one of the most dynamic running backs in the league. catches the ball well. He's a dynamic runner. I really like what he's doing. But the truth is, they signed Alexander Madison to a nice contract to come back when he could have left in free agency for an opportunity. And it seems like they've told him, look, you're the guy we want succeeding Dalvin Cook. Now, they brought in Dwayne McBride and they drafted Ty Chandler last year. So these are both guys that have some potential. McBride, really good contact balance, a little bit dynamic, only caught 5 balls in college because that's all. They just didn't throw it to him. We don't know yet if that's because they just didn't want to or he just couldn't catch it. We're going to find out this summer with camp starting today and tomorrow. I expect we're going to hear an awful lot about Dwayne McBride catching the ball over the next week or so. I like Ty Chandler too as a backup. So it's a fairly deep room right now. Losing Dalvin Cook is going to have a pretty big impact on it. It's going to leave a lot of questions in that running back room in Minnesota.
Yeah, so for me at number 8, I have the Green Bay Packers. I like Aaron Jones. How much of a factor is he going to be in the passing game? How much is he going to be a factor in the red zone? AJ Dillon kind of is what he is at this point in time. I think they're a good duo. That's why I have them here in the top half of the NFC draw. I just didn't put them a lot higher behind those two. They don't have a lot going on. Yeah, Patrick Taylor, they drafted Lou Nichols, Tyler Goodson. I don't really think anything major comes out of that. They may have to lean on Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon. As you mentioned, the passing assets are not incredibly strong, and you have a first-time starting quarterback. That's kind of where I have them. Next up for me, 7, I have the Minnesota Vikings. I'm also counting Dalvin Cook because he is there, but I am with you. If Dalvin Cook gets released, that is a huge shift for me for Minnesota. They'd probably be in that Tampa Bay Los Angeles Rams range, honestly, because Madison's been fine in spurts, but Madison has never even really been as dominant as I think we've always expected that he was going to be when he's had to step in for Dalvin Cook. I'm not 100% convinced they let Dalvin Cook go this year. It might be more of a next off season. They figure out what they're going to do. As you mentioned, they have Chandler, McBride. They have some guys back there, but I think without Dalvin Cook, I would view this running back room majorly differently. 6 for me, I have the Detroit Lions. Love the Jahmyr Gibbs draft pick. I like David Montgomery. I thought he was a solid contributor when he was with the Chicago Bears. I like their potential together behind him. They have Mo Ibrahim, a rookie they brought in, Jamar Jefferson, who I know Matt was real high on a couple of years ago that we haven't seen much from, and journeyman Craig Reynolds. I don't know that all of them end up making the team. Not bad depth. I like the 2 guys at the top, but I'm curious to see how they're going to use Gibbs. Is he going to be used a lot differently than what we saw with DeAndre Swift? Because a few years ago, we were incredibly excited about DeAndre Swift and the potential, and you saw it in flashes. Kind of curious to see how they use this backfield. Number 5 for me, I have the New Orleans Saints. I'm like you. Alvin Kamara isn't as dominant as he once was. I liked the Jamal Williams signing. I like the drafting of Kendre Miller. I think they have some options back there. I think it's also impossible to consider their backfield without considering the potential contributions of Taysom Hill if he makes the roster, because they use him as a big back. That's a big part of their kind of run attack. He factors into their tight end room too. So I kind of took that into consideration. I think they have pretty great depth, and they have some really good potential as playmakers, and that's why I have them there. I'll give my last 4 before Dennis finishes us out. At 4, I have the Seattle Seahawks. I loved Ken Walker's rookie year. I was tempted to have him top 5 as a dynasty pick. The Zach Charbonnet draft pick, like for you, gave me a little bit of pause. I still like their backfield as a whole a little bit better than you. I have them a few spots higher. I think those 2 guys are pretty dynamic. DJ Dallas, probably kind of a pass receiver. They have some depth pieces back there. They've talked about wanting to be a run-heavy team, and I think we perceive Seattle as a run-heavy team, but they haven't been as run-heavy the last few years. Do they get back to that? Is it a more robust workload. I guess we'll have to see. Then at 3, I have the Atlanta Falcons. Another team that goes pretty deep with running backs. Bijan Robinson is incredible. A rookie. I'm really excited to see what he does out there. I loved Tyler Algiers' rookie year. And we've seen Cordero Patterson be very effective out of that backfield as a runner and a receiver. What is the split going to be? What is the mix going to be? They have some incredible depth and some hedge against injuries. I still don't entirely know what Atlanta's doing on offense. They have worked on their offensive line, which is a plus. I love the potential here, but I have them at 3 for that reason. Number 2 for me is the Philadelphia Eagles. I don't think any team in the NFL goes 4 deep as strong as the Eagles do. Now they have DeAndre Swift. They signed Rashad Penny. They still have Kenneth Gainwell, and they have Boston Scott. And while we may not be enamored of Boston Scott as a guy that carries the backfield load, he has been a great contributor to their backfield. He has been a touchdown vulture that has haunted all of our dreams in fantasy. But I think they have some great depth and they have some great playmaking ability. I love the mix of options there. We saw Penny running really strong to end 2021 and at times in 2022 before he got injured. We've seen DeAndre Swift put up some huge numbers. Gainwell has had a lot of potential when he got drafted. I think they have an incredibly deep and diverse room. They also have Jalen Hurts down there running the ball that will probably take some opportunities, but I love the foursome that they've put together there. And that foursome's so good, you forget that they actually picked up Trey Sermon, who we may never see carry the ball ever, but he is there, at least for now. But number 1 for me, San Francisco 49ers. Christian McCaffrey is the best all-around running back in the game. We saw that magnified tenfold when he went to the 49ers last year. I mean, he literally had a game where he threw a touchdown, he caught a touchdown, and he ran for a touchdown. He has a unique set of skills you don't have in any other running back. And I think they have a really dynamic running back behind him as well in Elijah Mitchell, a guy who looked really great at times as a rookie, kind of has taken a back seat because they got Christian McCaffrey, but we know that they end up having to use a couple of backs. They have interesting depth pieces in Jordan Mason and Tyrion Davis-Price, who was a rookie last year that we didn't see a lot from, but they are the backfield that I have at number 1. So Dennis, what are your top 4 backfields in the NFC?
Well, I have at number 4, I've got the Eagles. Now, you make a strong case for them to be higher, but I'm just not sold based on DeAndre Swift's injury history and Rashad Penny's injury history. Are we comfortable with a backfield of Kenneth Gainwell, Boston Scott, and Trey Sermon? We could see that. We could see
they
that.
have the best line in the NFL, so it's possible.
We could see that this year. I want to be higher. I'm just not sold that, after 3 years as a soft-ish kind of running back, that DeAndre Swift is all of a sudden going to be hardened in Philadelphia. I've got the Lions at 3, and part of the reason is, you ask the question, you don't know what they're going to do with Jahmyr Gibbs. Are they going to use him like DeAndre Swift? And it felt like you were implying that they were going to not use him a lot because they did that with Swift. Well, they did that with Swift because every time Swift got dinged up, he couldn't play very well. So they are going to use Jahmyr Gibbs like they used DeAndre Swift. And as long as he's healthy, he's going to get the touches that DeAndre Swift would have gotten should he have stayed healthy and been able to stay on the field. I like Gibbs. I think Gibbs is a more explosive player than Swift. He's not as big, and that's gonna, you're gonna have to be careful. I don't think we're gonna see Gibbs running inside maybe as much as we did with Swift. Swift was 209 pounds at the combine versus Gibbs is 199. And they're both 5'9". So I love the explosiveness of Gibbs, and I liked. David Montgomery was my RB1 coming out his rookie year. I recognize all of the faults that he has. He's not dynamic. He's not explosive. He's got a great jump cut. He's got great lateral ability. He can turn 3 yards into 9 yards versus Gibbs, who can turn 3 yards into 89 yards, or Swift, who could turn 3 yards into 89 yards. But Montgomery's going to get a lot of that Jamal Williams role. He's a 230-pound back, 220-pound back. He's going to get some short yardage stuff. He's going to be the between the tackles guy. He's going to get a lot of work there. I think Craig Reynolds is when he's been pressed to play, because that offensive line is good, I would put him on par with Boston Scott and Kenneth Gainwell, because a lot of times the offensive line makes those backups look good. And I think Reynolds has benefited from that. We'll see what happens with Mo Ibrahim. He's an older prospect. He's got small hands. He's had some knee injuries. I think he showed a lot of promise at Minnesota, but I think a lot of things just added up for him, and he dropped really hard in the draft. And number 2, I've got the Niners. I went back and forth trying to figure out, like, is it fair to put Bijan Robinson over Christian McCaffrey, which I did. And honestly, I feel like if you could choose between rookie Christian McCaffrey and rookie Bijan Robinson, who would you choose? You'd probably choose rookie Christian McCaffrey because we know what he's going to do. But we're not choosing between rookie Bijan and rookie Christian. We're choosing between rookie Bijan Robinson and Christian McCaffrey, who's been in the league 6 or 7 years and had a 2-season stretch where he only played 5 games in each season. Yes, he's on the 49ers, who are an exceptional run team. They play very well. But McCaffrey is 27 years old, and almost 27. And Bijan is 21. To me, Bijan is likely the best prospect since LaDainian Tomlinson. You know who else has come out since LaDainian Tomlinson? Christian McCaffrey. So I've got Bijan over Christian. Christian's at number 2. I kind of agree with you with Elijah Mitchell. He's my number 1 backup. He's more Algier is my number 2 because we've seen him put up a 1,000-yard season with a average offensive line. But Elijah Mitchell, he's had some injury stuff, but he's more athletic. He's a little more, has more overall talent than Algier, but Algier is no slouch. Jordan Mason is the 3rd back in San Francisco. Tyrion Davis-Price. I think San Francisco's got 4 good backs topped off by Christian McCaffrey, and they earned the number 2 spot. And in my rankings, the way I did them, it's low score wins. It's kind of like golf. And so the Falcons have a 2.5 and the Niners have a 3.1. So it's not like there's a big gap there. But I got Bijan. I got the Falcons with Bijan at number 1, Tyler Algier. There's a world where Algier could have kept this job and put up another 1,000-yard season. He could have put up 2,000 or 3,000-yard seasons while they supplemented other positions. But Bijan Robinson's only come along, every 20 years or so is what it looks like. And so when you get that shot, if you're a run-heavy team, you got to take it. Algier was a 4th-round pick, I think.
I think he was a 5th-round pick.
Yeah, he was a later pick. Cordero Patterson is the RB3 in Atlanta. We get it. His days are numbered. He's older. He's a gadget guy now, though a 6'3" and 230-pound one.
Don't you wonder if they might start using him at receiver a little bit more, since their receiver depth chart is Drake London and then a lot of questions?
I don't wonder so much. What I do feel is that Cordero Patterson has a specific set of skills, and returning kicks is at the top of it. At the wide receiver position, it's fly routes and bubble screens. He doesn't run the other routes very well. He's good. He's an NFL player. At the running back, he doesn't have a lot of lateral movement. He's a straightforward running back guy. You give him a hole, he can go all the way on any play. He's big and he's fast. But I think he's a gadget guy to me. 9-route and gadget guy. And that, he's going to return kicks. He may be their wide receiver 3. They might line him up on the outside, put Mac Hollins in the slot, maybe have London play some big slot. And Caleb Huntley at their RB4, we saw Huntley perform well. I have Huntley over Tyrion Davis-Price. I think Huntley is one of the top 3 or 4 fourth string running backs. And he's good. He plays special teams. He's got good size. He's a grinder, not super athletic. I have the Falcons at number 1.
Well, that'll do it for our look at NFC running back groups. NFC I thought had weaker quarterback groups, but I think it'll be interesting. We can talk about it more when we look at the AFC on Friday, but I thought the NFC running back groups were a little more impressive than some of the AFC backfields. There's a lot of AFC teams that have one really good back and then a lot of questions, unless you're the Dolphins, and then you just have 5 mediocre backs and you call it a day. But so that'll be on Friday. We will keep doing our unit grades. We will be looking at AFC running backs. Hopefully Matt will be back with us for that one. But Dennis, if the people have a little bit of extra time on their hands tonight while they're waiting for the latest episode of Ted Lasso on Wednesday, what can they do?
Do you know what season it is, Matt? It's yard mowing season. You know what goes good with mowing the yard? Earbuds and the Fantasy Football Roundtable podcast. Plug us in your ears. Just smooth. Mow that yard. When you're done, be like, man, these guys gave me some good stuff here. Give us a 5-star review. Leave us a review and a rating. Let us know how you feel. We want to keep trying to make the show better. I mean, we've been around for over 600 shows. We've put in a lot of shows. And, I just got the notification from Chartable. We're back on the charts in England.
Hey, we love you, England. And you know what? You do bring up a good point. Nothing makes mowing the yard go faster than listening to a good podcast to distract you from all the labor you're doing.
Right.
Well, you guys have a great week, and we will see you on Friday as we talk some AFC running back groups. And Dennis, I'll be thinking about you Thursday night.
Arrivederci.